So good morning, everybody. Welcome to Buddhism for Daily Life. So I hope everybody is well and happy and staying safe, looking after yourselves, looking after one another. So I decided that I wanted using Buddhism for our everyday life. So we need to have some kind of understanding of Buddhism and what it's all about. So we belong here to the Vajrayana tradition, which follows on from the Mahayana tradition. And basically, our goal is to reach the state of Buddhahood in order to be able to help all beings. Because when we become Buddhas, we have perfect loving kindness, perfect compassion, perfect wisdom, and we care about all beings without exception. And the wish of a Buddha is for all of us to be well and happy and free of suffering. And the Buddha taught many techniques that help us to achieve our goals. So I want to talk about what is called the three points, the 4 points actually, that turn the mind towards Dharma. So if anybody's listening who is, or watching, because you guys are watching, even though I can't see you, the 4 points that turn the mind towards spiritual practice. So spiritual practice, I think there's a difference between spirituality and religion. Religion can be seen as very rigid, and, very often people hear the word religion and it really puts them off. One of the things, and there is still quite a lot of discussion as to whether Buddhism is a religion or a philosophy. To my mind, it's a bit of both because it has ritual and it has a lot of things that we associate with religion. However, I think the most important thing about Buddhism is that it is something that we are meant to put into practice in our daily lives. So before I move into the topics in more detail, let's just do a little bit of breathing meditation to calm our minds and to come into the present. So we're not going to do a very long session, probably about 15 minutes. But let's begin by making sure our spine is straight and that you're comfortable wherever you are, whether you're sitting on a chair, whether you're sitting on a cushion on the floor. Make sure that you feel comfortable and do your best to let go of any tension in your body. So let's just take 2 or 3 deep breaths and relax on the out breath. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Time to feel calm, relaxed, and focused. So starting at the top of your head, just notice any sensations that might be there. There may be no sensations. That's okay too. And then move down to your forehead. Down to the eyes. All those little muscles around the eyes. You know, our face holds quite a lot of tension. So it's important to release this tension. Releasing those muscles around the eyes and relaxing the eyes themselves. Nice and soft. Very gentle gaze. Moving down over the cheekbones. Relaxing the muscles around the mouth. Check to see that you're not clenching your jaws. As I often say, I think I always say it, when we concentrate without realizing it, we tend to clench our jaws. So make sure you're not doing that. Very good way to counter that is to have the mouth just slightly open. And that really makes it almost impossible to clench our jaws. Moving down to the chin. Oh, wonderful. We're just sitting quietly and relaxing our bodies. Move down to the toe with each out-breath. Going back to the top of the head and moving down the back of the head to the base of the skull. And now as you travel down the backbone, when you're opposite the shoulder blades, relax the shoulder blades. And travel on down to the base of the spine. After a while you'll know this routine and you won't need guidance. And so this is a very, very good thing to do before you begin your meditation. Moving back to the tops of the shoulders, relaxing the shoulders. Moving down from the shoulders to the elbows to the wrists, and the wrists to the hands, the palms of the hands and the back of the hands, going all the way to the tips of the fingers. Just relaxing, releasing, feeling calm and peaceful. And then bringing your awareness to the chest, the belly, the pelvic region. With each out breath, relax more and more. If you come across any tension, imagine that it leaves the body with the out breath. And moving from the hips, down through the thighs, to the knees, front and the back of the knees, down the shins, the calves, to the ankles, and from the ankles to the feet, soles of the feet, top of the feet, and all the way to the tips of your toes. Relaxing, releasing, letting go. You're keeping the mind alert. Just breathing naturally and normally. And then just doing a fairly quick scan again of the whole body. Checking to see if you've missed any areas of tension. Breathing normally and naturally. Really being aware of your body. Your body sitting comfortably, feeling grounded, safe, stable, and peaceful. So now we'll move into the breathing meditation. So as you know, your only task is to keep the awareness with the breath. Merge the awareness with the breath to the best of your ability. So there are 2 points of focus that you can choose here. You can either be aware of the breath entering and leaving the nostrils, or if you're feeling a little bit agitated, you can focus on the rise and the fall of the abdomen. Whatever feels comfortable for you, whatever feels the most beneficial. So as I said, our only task is to merge the awareness with the breath. And whenever the mind wanders, whatever it is that pulls the mind away, whether it's a sound, whether it's a thought, whether it's an itch, simply notice, bring the awareness back to the breath. And just really embrace this opportunity to just be with the breath and not to do anything else. Oh, wonderful. So whenever you notice that the mind has wandered, don't beat yourself up. Perhaps even give a little smile. How wonderful, you've noticed. Relax. And bring the awareness back. So don't make your breathing meditation sessions something else to beat yourself up with. Remember that you're practicing for most of this life, and according to Buddhism, who knows how many lives before this one, we've let our mind just wander and do whatever it likes. And now we're asking it to stay with one object, the breath. So we need to be firm but gentle, just as if we were training a little puppy. It's going to take time for the puppy to learn to stay. The same with our minds. So firm but kind. How often the mind wanders is not important. What's important is to notice and to bring it back again and again. So have a little stretch. I'm going to have a sip of my lemon tea. So before we move on to looking at the 4 thoughts that turn the mind towards the spiritual path, let's set a very positive motivation. We can see that with regard to anything we do, our motivation, our intention is very, very important. If our intention is positive, then our words, and anyway, then whatever we do will turn out to be negative. In fact, intention is seen as the more subtle explanation of karma, our intention. You know, we can shout at anger with the wish to harm them, or we can shout at somebody to tell them to get out of the way because danger is coming. So intention is so important. And those of us who are Buddhists and have taken refuge, that means that 3 times in the morning and 3 times in the evening we need to recite the refuge and bodhicitta prayer. And this is, in a way, you know, as one of my teachers, Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo, said, we're setting our GPS. So we have the wish that, you know, that whatever we do will be a cause for us to become enlightened, to benefit all beings. And if we set that intention very, very strongly every morning when we wake up, then we can kind of relax and we will be moving in the right direction, you know, guided by that intention. So those of you who are not Buddhist, you know, that might seem a bit strange to you. So let's, you know, if you're not Buddhist, think about the fact that when we allow our negative emotions and feelings to control us, we end up harming others, and ultimately that harms us as well. So think about it, you know, if we're motivated by fear or anger or jealousy or pride, you know, it's all about me, 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 me. That's only going to lead to suffering. So let's just open our hearts, you know, with the understanding that every single one of us, every single being on the planet wants to be happy and doesn't want to suffer. So with a heart that is filled with kindness and concern for others, have the thought, may any benefit I get from tuning in this morning, may it be not only for myself, but for everybody I come into contact with. So just make that very, very sincere. Take a little bit of time to really feel that in your heart. So Buddhism is meant to be put into practice. And to put it into practice, we have to have some understanding of Buddhism. It's all about developing loving kindness, compassion, and wisdom. But let's start where we are. We are all human beings. And as human beings, we have incredible potential to do so many things with our lives. This is perhaps we take this for granted a lot, you know. But as human beings with intelligence, there's so many skills we can learn. There's so many things we can do that benefit ourselves and others. And the first thought that turns the mind towards spiritual practice is understanding just this point. And, you know, Buddhism loves lists. They've 6 of this, 8 of those, 9 of these. Actually, it's quite useful because if you're trying to remember particular points of the Buddhist path, you can recall the numbers and you can think, oh, yes, there's 6 perfections, there's 4 noble truths, and so on. So Buddhism says that being human is really, really quite amazing. That may sound strange because there's 7 billion people on this planet. But if we're talking from the context of following a spiritual path, just being human doesn't necessarily mean that you are able to understand and put into practice the teachings of the Buddha. So let's look at, according to Buddhism, the different realms that we can take rebirth in, that we can be reborn in. So let's start with the scary ones, which is, you know, the hell realms. Some people are very put off when they hear, oh my goodness, there's hell realms in Buddhism. Yes, and I think that we can see parallels for all of these realms just by looking around. And according to the teachings, once you get into a more subtle level of teachings, all of these realms are a state of mind. So there's lots of hells. There's cold hells, and there's hot hells, and there's crushing hells, and there's, okay, so, you know, hot hells, people get lost in the desert and die. That's a parallel, isn't it? Cold hells, people get lost in the ice and the snow. Crushing hells, when there are earthquakes, buildings fall and crush people, and on and on and on. So we were not born in any of those realms. The examples I gave are parallels, you know, for these realms, which are actually states of mind. And according to Buddhism, the realm that we are in now is called the desire realm, and it is contained, you know, it is contained within the 6 realms: the human realm, the desire realm. So we are not in any of the hell realms. The next level up is called the realms of the hungry ghosts. It's an interesting word, hungry ghosts. You know, a lot of Buddhist teachings were translated, and I guess people found the closest possible example and use these words. So if we talk about the realm of the hungry ghosts, it's kind of like the addictive mind, where you traditionally, the hungry ghosts are beings who have very, very thin necks and very, very huge stomachs. Their necks are thin like a needle almost, and they're always hungry and they're always thirsty, but they can never get to food or drink. So if you think about, you know, the grasping mind of people with addictions, that would be very, very much like the realm of the hungry ghosts. Yeah. So we've got the hell realms, the hungry ghost realms, and then the animal realms. So the animal realms but we can see the animal realm, and we can see that there's a lot of suffering in the animal realm. Then comes the human realm. And this is within the 6 realms of samsara, we have actually hit the jackpot. to be in the human realm. And the human realm has this balance of suffering and happiness, whereas in the lower realms, in the hell realms, and the hungry ghost realms, and to a very large extent the animal realms, there's suffering is much more pervasive. In the hell realms, there's nothing but suffering, and the same for the hungry ghost realms. So as human beings, we get a balance, which is very useful, so we don't give up altogether. Then we have what is called the demigods, the realm of the demigods. If I try to find a parallel, in this world, this is like the wannabes, because there's the demigods and the gods. And the demigods are very jealous of the gods, so they're always fighting with the gods, and they can never win. So this is like people who really, really, really want to be rich and famous and powerful, but they can never quite make it. They're consumed with jealousy. They're jealous of. So the God realms is like all the rich and famous and wealthy. There are a lot of rich and famous and wealthy people who are very well off, who are helping others. But I'm talking about this mindset where the only thing that you're thinking of is getting more and more and more and more and more and more pleasure. And your life is very, very smooth. It's very comfortable. Whatever you want, it's there for you. But you're not at all interested in anything spiritual. Absolutely not. So it's Buddhism says that when we experience good things, it's a result of our positive karma. So Buddhism would say that in the God realm, the gods are simply using up all their good karma, enjoying themselves, but never thinking about generating loving kindness or compassion or wisdom. They're just having a wonderful time, and then all of a sudden the party's over, and they're going to fall down to a lower realm because they haven't put any energy into creating positive karma. They're just thinking about having a good time, one party to the next, and so on and so on and so on. So that's the 6 realms, right? So we've got from the bottom up, yes, the hell realms, the hungry ghost realms, the animal realms, the human realms, the realm of the demigods, and then the realm of the gods. So we have actually been born in the human realm this time round. How incredibly fortunate we are. So, as I mentioned before, it doesn't, from the point of view of Buddhism, this often called precious human rebirth or perfect human rebirth, it doesn't mean just being a human being. The way that it is traditionally taught is that we have what is called 8 freedoms and 10 endowments. So briefly, I don't want to get too technical. So we weren't born in the hells. We weren't born as a hungry ghost. We weren't born as an animal. And we weren't born as any of the gods. So that's 4 freedoms, And then we are also free of being born somewhere where that is very remote, so we don't come into contact with the teachings of the Dharma, and we haven't been born somewhere where there is no access to the Dharma, Dharma meaning the teachings of the Buddha. So the next one is that we're free from having been born when the Buddha has not come. So you think, well, what does that mean? Because the Buddha's not here. But of course, the Buddha's teachings are still alive. There are many, many great beings who have put them into practice and achieved very, very high realizations and enlightenment. So in that way, we can say that the Buddha is here with us. So the next freedom is, and this, we have to be careful that we don't misinterpret this. It says that we haven't been born with a mental deficiency. So this is not saying, please understand this exactly, when this is not saying that people who have a mental deficiency are of lesser value, because according to Buddhism, every single human being, and in fact every single sentient being, has Buddha nature, what is called Buddha nature, this essential purity. And at the very core of our being is this inexhaustible well of loving kindness and compassion and wisdom. However, if we're born with some kind of a mental deficiency, technically speaking and conventionally speaking, it means we cannot understand the teachings and be able to put them into practice. But those people are not of lesser value. So in the time of the Buddha, if you were deaf, you couldn't hear the teachings because the majority of people could not read and write in the time of the Buddha. And if you were mute, then you couldn't talk, you couldn't ask questions. Of course, all these things have changed over the years. There's so much help, there's signing and there's hearing aids and there's cochlear transplants. But in the time of the Buddha, if you had any of these problems, you were not able, even though you're a human being with Buddha nature and of equal value to everybody else, the condition that you have, your physical and mental attributes at that time are stopping you from being able to practice the Dharma. So this phrase, perfect human rebirth, precious human rebirth, means that you have the interest and the ability to listen to the teachings, to understand the teachings, and to put the teachings into practice. So I hope that's clear. It's not in any way denigrating people with any kind of disability, but it's talking about a specific condition that we have called a precious or a perfect human rebirth, right? So the eighth one is that, and this again is very much in the context of Buddhism, where it says freedom from holding wrong views. So, for example, here we are talking about, the fact that as human beings we have this incredible potential to be able to listen to the wisdom of the Buddha and to be able to learn about it, to be able to train our minds, to be able to put this into practice. But if we have wrong views, for example, if we were to say, I don't think that the Buddha existed, and I don't believe in karma, I don't believe in cause and effect, I can do whatever I like as long as I don't get caught. So, this means that we've moved away from our mind is not going to be tuned in to follow the path. And of course, Buddhism, one of the things I love about Buddhism, which I think a lot of people really appreciate too, is that the Buddha said, don't believe anything. The Buddha encouraged us to, if we have an interest, to listen to the teachings and to think about them and to criticize them, not just to take them on board without investigating and using our own intelligence. So if you didn't believe that enlightenment was possible, for example, if you didn't believe that there was such a thing as the Buddha and his teachings and the spiritual community, then you would never follow the path. So I hope that makes sense. This is really explaining exactly what a perfect human rebirth means. Yeah. And then, we also have what are called the 10 endowments. So it's going over a little bit, not only are we human and we're free from all of these 8 things, okay, but we've been born human. We've been born in what is called a central land. So this means a land, a place where there is access to the Dharma. Yeah? And we've been born with complete sense organs. So we are capable of listening to the Dharma, thinking about it, meditating on it, and putting it into practice. One of the other things that is listed in the 10 endowments is not having created the 5 extreme negative karmas. So the 5 heinous crimes. I often trip over this one. Let's see if I can remember. So we haven't killed our father or our mother. We haven't drawn the blood of a Buddha. We haven't created a schism, a division in the Sangha, the spiritual community, right? So not having killed the father, the mother, drawn the blood of a Buddha, and now it's only 3 now. Anyhow, we can look up the 5 heinous crimes. That can be your homework. Okay, not having killed your father, not having killed your mother, not having drawn the blood of a Buddha, not having created a schism in the Sangha, and there's one other one. But I guess, we haven't done that. I'll have to look up the other one later. That will give you guys something to do too. So the 5th one is that we have faith in the teachings. So this they talk about the teachings of the Buddha are divided into. It used to be called the 3 baskets because in the beginning the teachings were written on leaves. And the leaves were carried in baskets. So basically they're called the Vinaya and the Sutra and the Abhidhamma. So the Vinaya is really the code of discipline for monastics, and Sutra is the majority of the teachings, and Abhidhamma is the much more complex teachings of the Buddha. So once we've investigated, then we have faith, right? The 3 baskets. So the 6th one is called being born when the Buddha has appeared. So some of these are duplicating the earlier ones. So of course the Buddha, we cannot see the Buddha, but there are plenty of qualified teachers and practitioners, amazing beings on this planet that we can see. And so the 7th one is that the Buddha or his hearers give Dharma teachings, right? So Buddhists don't always give teachings. For example, Shakyamuni Buddha did not teach for some time after he received enlightenment because there was from the Buddha or his hearer disciples, and there are people who are gaining realizations. The 9th one is that the people are following the Dhamma. So we have examples of the Buddha and his disciples to emulate, and they're following the spiritual path. And the last one is that people have love for one another. There are people who have a very kind, loving nature, and they care for and help support practitioners. So it's quite amazing. You can see that having this perfect human rebirth is quite complex and very, very unusual when you think about it, human rebirth. So, you know, if you think about it, how many people are there on the planet who are just struggling to get enough to eat, to get enough food for today? They have no interest in anything else because their whole life is taken up with just trying to survive. There are people in places where it is actually prohibited to practice Buddhism. There are people who have absolutely no interest. Some people just, that mumbo jumbo, I'm not interested in that. I just want to be happy. I want to get a new car and a new house and a new girlfriend, a new boyfriend. Of course, everybody has Buddha nature, but people are not necessarily aware of it. And I'm not saying that only Buddhism is beneficial. But of course, in the context of these talks, we are talking about, the teachings of the Buddha. So there's people that have an interest, but might be they are stopped. Then their families are not happy with them following the spiritual path. There could be many, many reasons, right? So we really have to think about how incredibly rare this situation is that we find ourselves in. So maybe I'll just stop here for a second and maybe you've got some questions about this, because I really want it to be clear, and it's important that people understand what it means. So feel free to put something in the chat if there are any questions. Feel free to ask. While you're doing that, I'll look up the 5 heinous crimes. I hope they're in the back of the book. The 10, where's the 5? 4, see all these numbers. A, B, C, D, E, F, A, B, C. No, oh dear. Okay. No, it's not in the back of this book. It'll come to me when I'm trying to think of something else. So no questions? Okay. Okay, so that is the first of the 4 thoughts that turn the mind towards the spiritual path. Let me look at the time here. Okay. So the second one, the first one is this perfect human rebirth, precious human rebirth that we have, that is absolutely, is inconceivably precious if we really think about it. Inconceivable. Quite mind-boggling. The second one is death and impermanence. So it's interesting, in our culture we're not allowed to talk about death, are we? And it's the one certainty. It's one of the things I enjoy about being a Buddhist. You can say, well, one day I'm going to die, and people don't say, no, you're not going to die. I share with you a true story. My dear aunt, who's no longer alive, who died some years ago, I used to go and visit her because when I was at Vajrayana Institute, she lived on the Sunshine Coast. And one day I arrived and went in, and, we had a cuppa, and she said, oh, I'm so glad you're here because, I wanted to talk to the kids about, what I want done with my body and my few possessions when I die. And I tried to bring the topic up, and they just said, Mum, you're not going to die. And so she said, I just feel, that I'd kind of hit a wall here. And she said, I'm so glad you're here because I can talk to you about what I want done when I die. So we had a nice little conversation, and I said, well, you can tell me, but you really need to write it down somewhere. So yeah, it's strange how the one certainty in life is something that we're not allowed to talk about. Now I'm just noticing. Oh, hi, Sean. Something I mentioned in the very beginning, taking refuge at home. Okay, yeah. Okay, Sean, I'm still working on all your answers, by the way. You should get them sometime today. Faints. Oh, that's somebody's name. Venerable Dekyi, why do so many Buddhists make excuses to not become vegan, particularly when vegetarianism? Okay. So, this is a kind of a different question. It's not in the context of what we're talking about, but look, this whole thing about eating meat, personally, I'm vegetarian. I'm moving into veganism. I'm almost 100% vegan now. I've been vegetarian for many, many years. And I guess yes, I mean, the Buddha said, tame your own mind, not the minds of others. And I guess it's a personal choice whether or not you want to eat meat. But, as you say, I am often astonished that so many Buddhists eat meat. But I can't do anything about that. Even a lot of my teachers, Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo, she says, animals are my friends. I don't eat my friends. And it's so simple. His Holiness Karmapa, if I can quote, I could be a word wrong here or there, but anyhow, the gist of what he said was, if you are a Buddhist, then you believe that all sentient beings at some point have been your kind mother. So are you prepared to sit down and eat your mother? Think very carefully before you eat meat. So also there's things about, okay, this will go a little bit off. This is going a little bit off track, but I think it's important to address it. As human beings, we cannot live on this planet without, in one way or another, harming others. Even if we're 100% vegan, we eat vegetables. But when the soil is tilled, to plant the crop, little creatures die. If we eat sugar, what do they do before they harvest the cane? They burn the cane fields, and so many little creatures die, and larger creatures. So what we need to do, if we care about other living beings and we care about the planet, is to reduce the harm that we do. But we cannot force anybody else to do that. So all we can do is set an example. Yeah, that's the answer to that one. So I'll just leave that for the moment. Otherwise, we're getting too far away. Yeah, we're getting too far away. Yeah, from the topic. Some people don't care. Some people do care. Buddhists are like everybody else. Yeah. So can we just leave that topic for the time being? Okay, so would it be possible to take refuge at home? Well, I'll answer that in your email, the email that I'm sending to you, Sean. Okay. So as far as, being vegetarian, being vegan, I was talking about death and impermanence because that's the next topic. So to move back to the we have this precious human rebirth. And if we use it wisely, even if we don't become Buddhists, Buddhism's not about converting people, but if we use it wisely, we can develop our mind. We can develop our mind, we can become kinder and wiser and more compassionate, and we can be learn to be stable when things get difficult. So we can be like a candle in the dark, yeah? Whether we become Buddhists or not, we can, by training our mind, we can be of benefit to everybody around us. So we have this perfect human rebirth, but death and impermanence. Death and impermanence, okay? So we have this precious human rebirth, this perfect human rebirth. We don't know when we're going to die. That's the second point. We don't know when we're going to die. Can you sign on the dotted line that this time tomorrow you will still be alive? I don't think any of us can. So Buddhism says that death can come at any time. That death is definite, right? But the time of death is uncertain. So we all know they're born, 2 minutes after they're born. From the moment you are conceived, you're getting closer and closer and closer and closer to your death. And this is reality. And I often think that, people suffer when they don't accept reality. Accepting death helps us to take stock and to see what is important in our life and what we want to do, what we want to achieve before the Lord of Death comes along and says, hey, time's up. At a certain point, the Lord of Death is going to knock on the door, and we're not going to be able to say, please go away, come back later. It's not going to work. When our number's up, our number's up. Yeah, so contemplating death makes us realize how precious life is, and then gives us the impetus to not waste time. So that's the second one, death and impermanence. Yeah. Often people say, Buddhism is it's very negative. They're talking about death, they're talking about suffering, but the contemplation of death is so important. Otherwise, we just think tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes. So first we understand that we have this precious human rebirth, and we have this incredible opportunity to benefit ourselves and others, and we don't know how long we're going to have it. Does that make sense? So it's important to think about that. When you wake up in the morning, you don't know how many hours you're going to have. There's a lot of people who went to bed last night not thinking that today they were going to die, and they've died. This is reality, So it's a little bit like, let me see, the famous Aladdin's lamp, so you've got the precious human rebirth, which is like Aladdin's lamp. You can have anything you want if you put in the effort, And so you've got it in the cupboard. And then you think, well, tomorrow I'm going to take it out. And tomorrow you think, well, tomorrow I'm going to take it out. I've got other things to do. And we've always got something to do. We're thinking, well, I'll really get into this spiritual practice. When I put enough money aside that I don't have to worry about my future, I'll really get into this spiritual practice when the kids are grown up. I'll really get into this spiritual practice when, and then suddenly there's the Lord of Death and gone. Okay? Just gone. So it's so important to remember that. If you, gone. Those seconds are gone, and no matter what you do, you can't get them back. So what have we been doing? What have we been doing with our time? Have we been making an effort to train our minds? Have we meditated on loving kindness and compassion? Have we been aware of what's happening in our minds so that we don't get pulled away by anger and attachment and jealousy and pride? What are we doing with our time? It's inconceivably precious, and once it's, And then we've got karma. Now, karma is a huge topic. So I've gone into quite a lot of detail about the precious human rebirth, which I hope you now all will understand, and a little bit about death and impermanence. Now, karma is really about cause and effect. Really, really about cause and effect. And if we don't believe in cause and effect, we get ourselves into all kinds of trouble. But according to the Buddhist teachings, every action that is performed with intention, every action of our body and our speech and our mind leaves an imprint on our consciousness, right? And if they are going to ripen into suffering for us. And if we don't keep the positive imprints safe, they can be destroyed by anger. So when we understand about karma, we modify the way we behave. If we know that negative thoughts lead to negative actions, and negative actions leave imprints in our consciousness, and they're going to lead to suffering, we do our best to avoid negative actions and create positive actions. We do our best to purify the negative actions that we've created and to keep the imprints of the positive actions safe. So karma is a huge topic, and we'll look more into it as we go along. Then the last of the four thoughts that turn the mind to the spiritual path is the unsatisfactory nature of samsara. So, as I mentioned before, when I was talking about the perfect human rebirth, there are 6 realms in samsara. So whether you're born in the lower realms, whether you're born in the realms of the gods and the demigods, or whether you're born as a human being, you are still in samsara. And when we are in samsara by its very nature, because our minds in samsara are controlled, so it's a state of mind, our minds in samsara are controlled by karma and delusion, which means that without having any control, we get angry, we get jealous, we become full of pride or hatred or fear or malice. We don't have control. So never mind the other realms, even in the human realm, there's no escape from suffering. Of course, there are times when we are happy, but there is no fourth of the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to the spiritual path. So let's just look at them again. The fact that we have this perfect human rebirth, that's the first one. The second one is we have a perfect human rebirth, but death is coming and we don't know when. Death and impermanence. The third one is, now my mind's gone blank. The third one is karma. As long as we are controlled by delusions, we're going to create negative karma. Yeah, karma, cause and effect. And the fourth one is the unsatisfactory nature of samsara. So we're going to look, over the next few Wednesdays in more depth at all of these points. But what I'd like to do now, let's see if we've got time. Yes, maybe we've got time to do a meditation on the precious human rebirth. So just bear with me while I bring this up on my Kindle. And if you'll excuse me for one moment, I just have to go. I have to take a pee-pee break. Geshe Tashi Sering used to say that. Time for a pee-pee break. I'll be right back, folks. Okay, sorry about that. Let's have a look here. Technology. Okay. While you're waiting, just get into a comfortable position and watch your breath for a little while. Touch base with your positive motivation. Now, why is this not coming up? Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay, so when we do breathing meditation, there are two main types of meditation. One is single point of concentration, and a very common example of that is breathing meditation. And so the other type of meditation is called analytical meditation. So we're now going to do an analytical meditation on the precious human rebirth. And understanding that we have this precious human rebirth, it's a wonderful antidote to depression or a feeling of lack of self-worth, because it really is a wake-up call to appreciate this incredible situation that we find ourselves in. So sit comfortably with your back straight. Relax your body and let any tension dissolve and flow away. Remember your positive motivation, your positive intention. Begin by contemplating the enlightened. And enlightened. So your mind is clear and pure and has this amazing potential. This is true for you and all other beings. You can think, for example, the nature of every being's mind is clear like space, vast and unlimited. Our negative thoughts and emotions are not permanent. They're not fixed parts of the mind, but are transient, just like clouds that pass through the sky. And because they are based on ignorance and misconceptions, they can be cleared away, and the mind can be developed to a state that is completely pure and positive. If you find it difficult to accept that the mind has the potential to become enlightened, you can think of the positive qualities that you have: intelligence, loving kindness, compassion, generosity, courage, and so on, and remind yourself that these can be developed even further and that you can use your life to bring benefit and happiness to yourself and others. Think about this and feel joyful about the potential that lies within you. Although all beings have the potential to transform their mind and become enlightened, not all beings are in the most ideal situation in which they can recognize and develop this potential. Human beings are generally in the best situation, and non-human beings either have too much suffering or are incapable of developing their potential due to ignorance and other delusions. Imagine what it would be like as an animal, for example. Animals in the wild have no one to care for them, and when they experience hunger or thirst or heat or cold or sickness or injuries, there's nobody to help, there's nobody to care for them. And a lot of animals are in almost constant fear for their lives. Domestic animals are sometimes better off, but they lack freedom and they are often killed for meat, fur, or other products. And all animals, even the most intelligent, have a limited mental capacity and are unable to develop themselves intellectually or spiritually. The first time I heard this, I was very upset because I love dogs and cats and animals in general. What they're saying here is that it doesn't matter if there's a dog that is, Rin Tin Tin and Lassie and Inspector Rex all rolled up in one. They cannot understand when you say to them, negative actions lead to suffering. Positive actions lead to happiness. They just don't understand. It doesn't mean that they don't have kindness, that they don't have a certain level of intelligence, but as far as being able to evolve spiritually, they're kind of stuck. But they're still amazing. I think we can learn a lot from animals, a lot of kindness there across species and so on. Anyhow, still, they can't understand about, karma, cause and effect, and so on. They don't understand the potential that they have. However, even with all human beings, not everyone has the right condition to recognize and develop their potential. Imagine, for example, being a destitute beggar or living in a war zone. Most of your time and energy would be spent simply trying to keep yourself and your family alive. You would have little or no time to think of anything else, such as spiritual practice. Imagine if you suffered from a severe mental disability or illness, which would make it very difficult for you to understand the teachings on the mind's potential and how to develop it. Or if you had a physical condition that caused you a great deal of pain, discomfort, and inconvenience, and hindered your ability to learn and practice and how to develop it. Imagine spending your entire life in a small, remote village where no one. Other people may be aware of their potential and sincerely wish to practice the teachings on how to develop it, but they are prevented from doing so by others. For example, people in some countries do not have freedom of religion. Others face strong objections from their parents or spouse or children. Imagine yourself in such a situation. Recognize how difficult it would be and appreciate the freedom that you have. Then there are many people who are physically and mentally healthy and materially well off and have the freedom and opportunity to learn spiritual teachings, but are simply not interested. Their interests lie elsewhere, accumulating wealth, property, and possessions, acquiring worldly knowledge or skills, or in simply experiencing as much pleasure as they can. They never consider that all these things will be left behind when they die, like a dream that vanishes as soon as we wake up, and that only their mind will continue to the next life. Some people engage in harmful actions such as killing, stealing, being abusive or dishonest, not realizing that these actions cause suffering to themselves and others and create further obstacles to discovering their true potential. Recognize how fortunate you are to be interested in enlightenment or any aspects of the Buddhist teachings and using your life in meaningful, beneficial ways for yourself and others. Now bring to mind the positive qualities and advantages that you have. You're a human being with an intelligent mind, a loving heart, and a body that you have opportunities to pursue your creative, intellectual, and social interests. You enjoy a good standard of living. At least you have enough to stay alive. And most of all, you have the potential and opportunity, because of all the other benefits, to investigate, understand, and transform your mind. Even if your life does not afford as much freedom and comfort as you would like, and even if you have to live with some very difficult problems and challenges, no matter where you are and what conditions you live in, you can always work on your mind. Share these freedoms and chances with you. When you consider this deeply, you will realize how rare and precious a life like yours is. Take time to really appreciate your good fortune. Once you've seen the disadvantages that your life is free of and the advantages that you enjoy, decide how best to use your precious opportunities. Think of all the possibilities that are open to you. Work, travel, not these days, enjoyment, study. If you wish to offer service to others, there are countless opportunities to help those less fortunate than you. But the most meaningful and beneficial thing you can do, both for yourself and others, is to develop yourself spiritually, overcoming the negative aspects of your mind and increasing the positive. Try to see the limitations of a lifestyle that is geared solely to materialistic gain. Think of the insignificance of fame and wealth and reputation and sensual indulgence when compared, to the goal, for example, of enlightenment. Or even a goal of developing more loving kindness, more compassion, more serenity, more peace, more equanimity, being less judgmental. So why aspire to only temporal achievements when we are capable of so much more? See if you can feel a sense of joy and appreciation for the wonderful situation that you have. Resolve to use your life wisely, doing your best to avoid harming others and helping them as much as you can. Developing your love, compassion, wisdom, and other positive qualities that will enable you to actualize your highest potential. So how amazing. Just take a little bit of time to rejoice. And make a determination to use your precious human rebirth wisely. To the wisdom of the Buddha. And let's send out to the world a very powerful, strong, sincere wish that all beings everywhere may be well and happy and free of suffering. And those that are suffering in whatever way get whatever help and support they need. So stay happy, stay well, stay safe. And I'll just repeat a few times the mantra of Aryatara, which His Holiness the Dalai Lama has recommended that we recite now, particularly, because of the situation with the virus. So it goes like this. Om Tare, Tu Tare, Ture Soha. Tare, Tutare, Ture Soha. Om Tare, Tutare, Ture Soha. Om Tare, Tutare, Ture Soha. Om Tare, Tutare, Om Tare, Tutare, Ture Soha. Stay safe, stay well. Thank you.